Okay, let's talk about this video. I'll play it for you here.
Do you want to know what really gets me upset and gets my blood boiling and gets me frustrated about this whole Idaho 4 case? It's the fact that Maddie had 3 unknown DNA samples underneath her nails. 3. Not 1, not 2, but 3. When you go take self-defense classes, they tell you if you're getting taken from a place, try not to be taken from one place to another. Kick, scream, fight, scratch, do whatever you have to do. As women, we know to do that. We know that if you get DNA on your fingernails, it's easier for them to solve. So we've got one person incarcerated. By the way, his DNA was not under her fingernails. So what are we doing about the other 3 unidentified male DNA? This is just one of the many things that just infuriates me. What infuriates you?
What infuriates me? People like you that don't read the documents or listen to what was said in the court hearings, okay? And it was not 3 unidentified male DNA under her fingernails. And also, she did not fight. She had only passive defensive wounds. There was never a chance for her to get any DNA from the perp under her fingernails at all. So let's take a look.
It's not the state's position that DNA is or likely could be Mr. Koberger's under the fingernails, that it's unknown people from however the victim lived her life in the hours, days before this event, and whoever was the perpetrator may have been clothed in a way that fingernails didn't contact skin. I assume that's the state's position.
That is exactly correct, Your Honor. The state's theory here is that one would not expect the perpetrator's DNA to be under her fingernails, given the eyewitness account of what the perpetrator was wearing, the complete lack of any defensive wounds on this particular victim, the toxicology report. All of that suggests you wouldn't anticipate this to be the perpetrator. And so we have no...
So does that mean the state's not going to present this evidence in a way that would suggest or argue that it could be Mr. Koberger's DNA?
Specific to her about the policy, and it fell within the policy, and that's why I'm saying that's what the state would present. And of course, she's open to cross-examination. Of course, the defense can put on theirs that can say, no, we can say he's excluded. The state has no plan or intention to in any way ask questions, imply, or certainly argue that this DNA belonged to the defendant. That, again, we will actually be arguing much different than that you would not anticipate the perpetrator's DNA to be under the fingernails. And so that's where that is coming from with the inconclusive data.
So that was Jeff Nye when he testified at the motion in limine hearing last year. And they were not going, if it had gone to trial, they were not going to say that the fingernail DNA was inculpatory to inmate 163214. What it was is if it falls within a 0.10 to 100 likelihood ratio, it's inconclusive. So someone can't be excluded. But the defense went and took the DNA to another lab, and that lab was able to say that inmate 163214 could be excluded from that mixture. Now, you also heard Jeff talking about no defensive wounds. Now, I know you're going to go, well, she had injuries on her hands and forearms. Okay. If the injuries are on the top of the hands and the forearms, that's passive. That is, it may not even have been passive. That could have just been from him stabbing her while she was asleep, because they don't believe Maddie ever even registered what was going on. So if her arms were laying like in front of her and he stabs her, it's going to get on your forearms. If you kind of wake up because you felt it and your instinct, that passive instinct to kind of cover yourself, then it's still going to be the hands and the forearm. And you're not grabbing, you're not clawing, you're not trying to push the person away. So they have no reason to believe from the autopsy findings that she got any DNA off the perpetrator at all. She wasn't making any of those movements to be able to get it. And also, if he was wearing a long sleeve shirt and gloves, you're not going to get any DNA off of him anyway. But let me show you the likelihood ratios, because it was not 3 unknowns and it was not 3 unknown males. The DNA profile obtained from item 13.1, so that was Maddie's fingernail clippings, the DNA, indicates a mixture of DNA with a major profile, which is consistent with having come from Madison Mogen. Kaylee Gonsalves is a potential contributor to this mixture. Assuming a 3-person mixture and that Madison Mogen is a contributor, this DNA profile is 77,900,000 times more likely to be seen if it were the result of a mixture of DNA from Madison Mogen, Kaylee Gonsalves, and an unrelated randomly selected individual than if it resulted from Madison Mogen and 2 unrelated individuals that were randomly selected from the general population. So that means that we know the major contributor was Maddie. So then that leaves 2. So if you're doing a 3-person mixture, it's more likely, 77,900,000 times more likely, that that's Kaylee's also in there with Maddie's, which leaves 1 unknown. Okay. And so they checked it against 2 unknown and then against 1 unknown. And it's more likely that it's Maddie's mixed with Kaylee's and then 1 unknown. And we know from later documents that were released that the redacted, the 0.485 was Cole Berenberg, the 3.33 was Ethan, the 2.33 was, or 0.0233 was Bethany, and the 0.399 was Jack Ducour. And then you had the 0.201, which was Xana. So those are the likelihood ratios. So if you notice, it's all people that Maddie had spent time with that day. She was talking to Cole at the bar. She even had put her arm, you can see in some of the video from Corner Club, like her hand on his shoulder, things like that. So you figure she's probably getting some DNA there, like if she hugged him. Obviously Kaylee's being the secondary contributor along with her, that makes sense. They spent all their time together. Ethan's a higher likelihood ratio than anyone in that 3rd spot. So they can't say that any of these, though, were included, but they can't exclude any of them. So there is not some random unknown male's DNA running under her fingers. It's likely all people that she was in contact with that day and not the perpetrator. So the 3-person mixture, 2 of those, 1 was Maddie, 1 was Kaylee. And the 3rd, it appears, is one of the people that she spent time with that day. And it's basically a nothing burger. Somewhere along the way, there was some content creators that completely misunderstood what the whole situation was about and started saying that it was 3 unknown male DNAs, and that's absolutely false. And the whole reason why the motion in limine was filed was not because Anne was saying that there was some other perpetrator's DNA under her nails. It was just that her client should have been excluded from the mixture under her nails. But ISP Lab, by their own rules, is not able to exclude him because of that rule about 0.10 to 100 not being able to exclude someone if they're in that range. So that all got worked out. If it had gone to trial, they would have never even brought up the nails because, again, Maddie did not have active defensive wounds. So she had no DNA from the perpetrator anyway under her nails. So I hope that helps.